So okay, so I know this is Veterans Day holiday weekend, and we all have, a million things that we could be doing, but you all chose to spend a part of your weekend with us. Super excited for that. And I'm very excited about this session. I have been pursuing Miss Obehi here for quite a while. She's a very busy woman. And I'm very excited for the conversations that we're going to be having today. Ms. Obehi is a marketing expert, and she is an amazing teacher. And when I say amazing, I'm not just flattering. She has this uncanny ability to take very complex marketing concepts and simplify it in very simple, practical, easy to apply steps. So I'm very happy that she has chosen to spend part of her Saturday with us. She's a global brand director for Reckitt Health. Reckitt Health is like an umbrella company for million-dollar companies like Flonase, Lysol, Clearasil. So if you've been in this part of the world for the past 2 years, of course, you know what Lysol is. So she knows what
Especially with COVID, right?
For sure. And if you know anything about allergies, you've seen those ads on your screen about Flonase. So this is not your typical Instagram marketing expert. So I'm very excited that she's here with us today. And she's going to be talking to us about understanding your customer's journey, which is very important. This is where I will stop because I don't know anything about marketing. So join me in welcoming Ms. Obehi Remi-John. Thank you so much for being here. You're welcome.
Thank you, Faith. I'm like, that's a high praise intro to top. Please don't overhype me. But no, thanks. And I'm excited to be here. Let me share my screen and see if you guys can see this. But I am thrilled to be here. Marketing is fun for me. So this is one of the topics I could talk about for. You don't want to get me talking about it too much, but I love to talk about marketing. So this is fun for me. Give me a sec. Let me get my screen up here, and then I will see if you guys can see. Okay. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. And what you're seeing is not my notes, it's like the actual screen with actual stuff, right? Just making sure the right screen is sharing. Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
All right. So let's jump in. And as Faith said, I'm going to take you guys through the typical stages of a consumer's purchase journey and how that impacts the sort of messages that you tell them. And really the reason that matters, right? The only reason it's important to understand that is because when you do understand what the consumer's journey is, it helps you create more persuasive messages, right? Because if you are looking to get consumers to buy the products that your brands offer, you have to give them persuasive messages that encourages and attracts them to buy. And you can't really do that properly unless you understand what stage of the purchase journey they are on, and then how you should be crafting messaging to reflect that. So I thought this would be an interesting one for anyone who is running a business or a brand, regardless of how long you've been doing that. So I wanted to take you guys through this. But before I start, as Faith was mentioning, I wanted to share a bit about my background, and I'm doing this because I similar to what Faith was saying, I've seen there's tons of people calling themselves experts now everywhere, and I thought it only made sense to give you guys just some understanding of some of the work I've done and where my expertise is coming from, essentially. So I've been in marketing for quite a while. It's been over a decade at this point, which kind of ages me a bit, but there it is. And I've had the privilege of working on some really amazing brands for some of the largest consumer packaged goods companies in the world. So it's cut across personal care, surface care, health and wellness. And many of these brands generates hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And I've been responsible for continuing to drive that growth, which essentially means creating lots of marketing campaigns, product launches, essentially lots of stuff to do with brand management, which is a lot of hard work. But like I said, it's also a lot of fun for me because I really have found marketing to be fascinating. And getting to see and learn how these big corporations run these huge brands has really solidified my love for marketing. Now, these brands aren't successful by accident. There's a lot of strategic thinking to fully understand the consumers, develop the right products that address their needs, and then determine the best messages that communicate that to those consumers in the right channels. Now, I've seen sort of the corporate end of the spectrum, but I've also had the opportunity to see the entrepreneur side of the spectrum as well, because I've got lots of entrepreneurs in my family. And the two approaches couldn't be more different. I very quickly saw there's like some real big gaps in how entrepreneurs approach their businesses, especially when it comes to really understanding their consumers and strategic planning for their marketing. And that's why I launched Aurora AI. So I wanted to give entrepreneurs access to the same level of expertise that these Fortune 500 brands use to generate millions in revenue. And I provide that using coaching and digital toolkits in my signature program. It's called the F500 Marketing Igniter program. I also post a ton of useful content on marketing and building brands on my Instagram page. It's at Aurora AI, really for entrepreneurs that sell physical products who have product brands, right? I want to make sure you guys follow me there because there's a ton of content I'm posting there on a regular basis. So while I still head Mucinex, which is the brand I'm working on now, Mucinex and Delsim, and I had that brand globally in the corporate world, I have the pleasure of getting to fulfill what's been a lifelong dream of mine, right? Of helping entrepreneurs, which I think is pretty amazing and really, fulfills me. Now I'll talk a bit more about the FMI program at the end, but I want to dive right into why we're here. Actually, before I do that, let me just ask that, because I want to take you guys through the content, if we can hold questions until the end. So as we're going through, just jot down any questions that you have, and then I will tackle them at the end. But I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to get through the content first, and then we'll get to questions. But we'll leave time at the end for questions so that I can answer them. All right, so to start, I wanted to show you guys a few ads and ask you guys a couple of questions. So give me one sec. Let me switch screens. Perfect. Okay. So hold on. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So I want you to imagine that you've never heard of the, and I don't know if you guys have heard of Mucinex or not, but imagine if you have never heard of this brand before and you saw the ad I'm going to show you now. I want you to post in the chat how likely you would be to purchase it the next time you had a cold. So put 1 in the chat if you're not likely to purchase it, 3 if it's a maybe, and 5 if it's very likely. All right, let me play it and you guys tell me. Post in the chat and tell me what you think. Actually, can you hear the sound? Because I don't know if I'm sharing with sound. Give me a sec.
Yes.
You can. Perfect. All right, let me start it again.
The sound, is it supposed to be making, there's no sound.
Yeah. You guys can hear it. Give me one sec. Let me reshare.
Okay.
I'll share. I don't think I shared with sound.
Okay.
Yes, I didn't. Okay, cool. No, now that's the wrong screen. Give me a sec. Here we go. Okay. And with sound. Let's try that again. Cool. I'll spare you the annoying noise a second time. But if you saw that ad, don't know this brand, never heard of it before, you just saw that ad, just post in the chat how likely you are to purchase it after you saw that. So 1 if not likely, 3 if you're like maybe, and then 5 if you are yes, I definitely would. Just so I can get a sense. Let me know you guys know once you've done that. Let me see if I can see the chat.
Can you explain the ratings again?
Yes, 1 means you are not likely to purchase it after you saw the ad.
Okay.
3 means you're in the middle, you're like maybe. And 5 means you definitely would purchase it.
Okay.
And I want to see. Hold on. Trying to get so I can see the chat responses. Oh, there we go. Found it. Cool. All right. So people are 3. Okay, lots of maybes and 1s. Excellent. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to show you something else now. All right. Let's minimize you. Sorry, I have like 3 or 4 screens open, so just bear with me as I'm moving stuff around. All right, so I'm going to show you another one. Now, this is another one, same thing. This time, you didn't see the previous ad I just showed you. You haven't seen anything. You don't know this brand. If you saw this ad, I'm going to play next. Again, I want you to tell me 2 things I'm asking. One, how likely would you be to now consider this as an option next time you have a cold, that you consider this brand as an option? Or how likely are you to just go right ahead and purchase it next time you had a cold? So there's 2 options. A means you are going to consider it next time you have a cold. B means you would definitely purchase it next time you had a cold. I'm going to show you the ad, and let me know what you think.
I'm feeling better.
No, you definitely still have a fever.
Nope, I'm back.
Body pain? Headache?
Nope, all in one and done.
Congestion?
Better.
Cough? Fever?
Better.
Ah, bummer. Stuffy nose?
Better.
Feelings of inadequacy, impending doom.
Yeah, I'm not your therapist, man.
Mucinex All-in-One relieves 9 symptoms in 1 dose. With Mucinex, it's not cold and flu season. It's always comeback season.
Cool. All right. So let me check the chat. And remember, there's 2 options this time. There's A, I'm going to consider this product next time I have a cold. And there's B, I'm definitely going to buy this product next time I have a cold. Let's see if I can find the chat again. There we go. Okay, excellent. A and B's, awesome. All right, cool. So can anyone, I even have people who said none, amazing. Okay, so the person who said none, please tell me why. Just unmute yourself and tell me why. And then I'm gonna ask one person, so whoever chose A or B, just one person, just chat it type it in the chat. Like why, what's your reasoning? I'd love to understand why.
I think with medicines, I tend not to go with cartoon characters. Don't really like cartoons when it's advertising medicine. Yeah.
Okay. And then so those who picked A, can anybody tell me why they picked A? Like why would they consider it?
So I chose A because there's human being talking, and then there is reason for why the product is being used. Headache, no. Flu, no, and all those stuff. But the first advert didn't show anything. Was just showing a very, very ugly cartoon, and then showing celebration of what I don't understand.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, very cool. All right, so you guys have completely illustrated my points on why you need to understand where consumers are in the purchase journey. So most of you said, right, the second one, people are like, okay, I'll consider it. I'm starting to see a bit more of like what this does and why it should matter to me. So, I'm going to consider it, especially if I don't know this brand. And people were like, the first one, even though there was like, they're offering you money back, they're like, buy this and you get $5 back. People are like, I don't know what this does. I don't know what the cake has to do with anything, And of course, our favorite character, he's called Mr. Mucus. People either hate him or love him. But he's very attention grabbing, which is one of the reasons we use him on the brand. This is the brand that I work on in my 9 to 5. But my point was, this is why you need to understand, right, where people are in the purchase journey. You need to know where they are, because that impacts what message you are delivering to them, because that will ultimately get them to take the action that you want them to do, whether it's to purchase, whether it's to find out more information about your brand, whether it's to consider you as an option. That's sort of really what you want consumers to think through. So let me take you through the different steps of the different stages of the purchase journey, and then sort of walk you through each of those pieces so you understand what I mean. All right. Cool. So this is a very simplified version of what a consumer purchase journey looks like. There are much more detailed versions. I just, for entrepreneurs, this is really the critical piece you need to know. The rest is, marketing theory that we like to understand, but it's not necessary for everybody else. So this is a simplified version of what it looks like. You're really trying to take your consumers from down this path. You want them to start with awareness. They notice your brand. They find out that it has something worth them paying attention to consideration. They're starting to consider it as an option that can solve their problem, or to buy, right? They choose it and then they go ahead and purchase it. Now, I've shown this in a very linear way, but right, in reality, it's really not. And that's because, consumers can jump from Sometimes awareness to buy, straight to buy, or consideration to buy. It really just depends on different things. And some of that is really, how familiar you are with this brand, right? If you've bought this brand before, if you've had previous experience with it or somebody else recommended it, many times you may not necessarily need to spend too much time considering it because either you trust your previous experience or you trust somebody else's recommendation. It also matters how involved the category is or not. So for example, dishwashing soap, super low involvement category. Most people hate cleaning. No one wants to care. No one cares too much about it or wants to think too hard about it. So it's a very low involvement category. So consumers are not really over invested, right? It's also really low price points. We're talking $5, $4. People are like, it's not that big of a risk if I don't really like it. I'll get whatever is available. So people don't really spend too much time thinking too hard about this. So this is one category where you really see people going from, okay, I just, I know this brand, I saw it, it looks interesting, I'll get it. They're not like assessing or considering too hard what they're getting. But then if you're thinking about, higher price points items, like you're trying to get a car, no one's just jumping straight from, I've heard about the brand and I'm going to go ahead and buy it. They will spend the time looking at options, assessing it, and deciding if it's something that's important, it's worthwhile for them to buy. So it matters how involved your category is. They vary depending on what you offer. But that also impacts how often consumers are likely to sort of go through this process of like starting with awareness, then shifting to consideration, then moving to purchase. And so really the whole point of this was to give you a sense as to what that journey looks like, and the fact that sometimes it's linear, sometimes it's not. It really just depends on familiarity with the brand and the sort of the level of involvement in the category. So what I want to do now is jump into each phase and then talk about what's your consumer thinking, what should you be doing, and how should that impact sort of the messaging that you offer. So let's start with the awareness stage. Now, at this point, your customers they're usually aware that they have a problem to solve. They may not be actively looking for a solution to it, but they're going to do so at some point. So if you think about the Mucinex example, most people are going to have a cold at some point. People know that. They may not have one just yet, right? So they may not be actively looking for a solution. But because they know they may get a cold at some point, you really have people that tend to stock up with these sorts of products, right? So what you're doing is trying to make sure that consumers are aware of your brand as they are assessing it. So if you are a brand in this space that consumers have never heard of before, right? And unless you've been around for many, many years, and you're some of these like really big household brands, most entrepreneur brands sit in this category of most consumers are unfamiliar with your brand. They've never heard of you. They don't know what you offer, right? What you're trying to do is get consumers aware of your brand as a potential solution to their problem. Now, that means that at this stage, you're simply trying to get them to notice your brand and learn more about how you can solve their problem. And why is that important? Because you want to get into the consideration sets. Every consumer, right? Every one of us, we all have consideration sets. If I think about myself, whenever I have a problem and I want to get a solution to it, there's a number of short list of products that I'm assessing amongst when I'm thinking through what I want to get, right? So if I have a cold, for example, and I want to get something, for me, it's usually my options are like Dayquil, Mucinex, maybe Tylenol, depending on what my symptoms are. But that's usually my like instant go-to frame of reference. I'm like thinking of those 3 or 4 brands when I'm trying to get something. And it's within that short list that I will now choose which one I'm going to buy. And really, there's 50 other brands that treat colds, right? If you go to the shelf, there's tons of them. But my default consideration set is those brands because I'm familiar with them. But if I were a new brand, right? If someone who has had a new brand and I also want to treat colds, right? Your focus at that point is trying to get into that consideration set consumers already have. So for you to even have a shot at being chosen, right, at being potentially bought, if you don't enter the consideration set, there's no chance that consumers will consider you as an option for them to buy. So for a brand that's unfamiliar to consumers, your focus at this stage, the awareness stage, is all about getting consumers to notice you so that you can enter their consideration sets, period. That's it. It's not about getting consumers to purchase you yet. They don't know enough about you. They need more information before they can even consider it. Your goal now is just notice me. Hey, I'm here, brand X, and I'm a potential solution to the problem that you have. So if this was a new cold brand, like the Mucinex ad we saw, and the first thing, I've never heard of a brand, and the first thing they showed me was like, oh, get $5 off when you purchase this brand. Somebody said, like, I was seeing a birthday cake. I was like, I don't know what that means. That it doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't mean anything to me. it's not going to have any effects, right? Because most people won't purchase you yet. They don't know enough, right? And they're not convinced that it's that you're the right option for them. So the other implication with this, right, is that what you're asking people to do, your call to action at this stage, is really just getting consumers to learn more about your brand. That's it. You're inviting them to find out more. That's all you're trying to get them to do. You want them to spend some time, do a bit more digging into what you offer, and see if it makes sense. It makes sense as an option for them, right? So, what I wanted to reiterate at this stage, it's not about purchase. They are not ready to purchase you because they're not familiar with you. They don't know you. So your messaging at this stage is all about, I want them to notice me. I want them to start to dig even more deeper into what I offer as a brand, right? This is the stage where you're starting to get sort of that attention. That's what you're trying to accomplish. So that's the awareness stage. The other thing I wanted to show you guys was some good examples I've seen, and I'm marketing. I'm always like looking at ads and things like that. So this is literally some examples I've seen on my feed, and I thought were quite interesting. And I think they are good examples of how some brands help capture the attention of consumers, right, at this awareness stage. The first one I'll show you is called Rever. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but if you have, it's a new vacuum brand. I'll play it for you, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Cool. So, product demos are really a great tool to get awareness, to capture attention, especially if you are able to show, the instant transformation or the direct benefit your product offers. This product is essentially an alternative to existing hair blowers, right? It's like a reverse vacuum thing that sort of dries your hair out in like a really short amount of time. So all they did was like demonstrate what it does. And the call to action was like, learn more. And honestly, just seeing that, I know when I saw this, I'd never seen this before. I have typical 4C hair. I have an 8-year-old daughter who is a nightmare to deal with her hair. I saw this and I was like, let me check what this is about, because this looks interesting, right? But it was enough to like capture my attention to say, I need to stop. I have never heard of Rever. I've never heard of the brand, but I saw that and it was enough to sort of capture my attention. And they've seen, they're seeing some quite great success and traction already. But the reason I brought it up was product demos, depending on what your brand offers. If you are able to show an instant transformation, you can demonstrate the clear, direct benefit that's visible that the consumer will get. They're an interesting way to like capture attention quickly and get consumers to notice you. So that's a great example. Another one that I saw that I thought was interesting is this brand. It'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. And this really was like, it's a very strange ad. Look, watch it and tell me, you guys tell me what you think.
It is a scientific fact that nothing on Earth stays unchanged forever. With new challenges come new adaptations, new features. And just when you think you know how it works, things change. Thumbs, so handy. The familiar docks you use for work are evolving. Coda will help your team thrive.
So I saw that ad and I was like, ew, with some of the things that I saw. But what was interesting was it's very surprising. It's a bit quirky. It's like funny. So it for sure got me to pay. Like I've watched this ad now a couple of times. Every time I don't care about documents. Like I work, if my office is doing something with documents, I leave it to them to figure that out. But I saw this ad and it really stuck with me because I was like, what the hell are they advertising? Like, what is this about? Right? It's just because they did it in such an interesting way. So they're essentially saying they're taking a whole new take on how they are treating documents, right? And it actually got me thinking, I should check what these people are talking about because of how they delivered the message. They did something that was surprising, was quirky, was funny, capturing attention, getting noticed, to get people to learn more. At this stage, they're not trying to convince you to buy them yet. They're just trying to get your attention so you can explore them and find out more. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting one. That the chicken that carries the chicks with the hand still freaks me out a little bit, but I thought it was an interesting ad to share. All right, cool. All right, so let's keep going. So if we move on to consideration right now, so you've gotten consumers at this stage, the consumer now knows a bit about your brand. At this point, they've been exposed to some of the things you shared. Maybe they saw your message they saw your message at the awareness stage. It piqued their interest, and they decided that they wanted to learn more about your brand. So maybe they went to visit your website to read more information, or they started to look through reviews to see what other people are saying about it. So this is where you are getting added into the consideration sets, right? It's after they see more information on your brand and learn about the benefits that you offer, how credible those are or not. So whether that's reading about the process of how you deliver the benefit that you say you provide. So some brands will talk about, the type of ingredients they use, maybe their manufacturing process, to give you some confidence that they can really deliver the benefits you're talking about, or they talk about their ingredients, or you look at people's reviews of people who have actually used it and came back and had, something good to say. Whatever those proof points are that can show that your brand can actually deliver the benefits. These are the types of information that you're looking to provide at this stage to get added into the consideration sets. So your brand's goal, it's all about getting into the consideration sets, right? And your messaging must focus on providing the information that gets them to do that. So now in this case, you may or may not have a CTA, right? A call to action that you have for consumers. So if you think about it, right, you have a consumers sort of see something that you shared in the awareness stage, they go to your website, they are reading your information. You're not necessarily asking them to add it to your consideration set. The intention is that that's what they're going to do, right? Unless sometimes you have it in an ad and they are directly asking for that. So in this case, where you have a CTA, again, it's about learning more. The example I shared previously about the Mucinex one, where you saw a bit more detail about what the product does, the symptoms that it covers. That's you giving more information to get people to do two things: pay attention to what you said. Yes, Mr. Mucus is a great way of capturing attention, but then that information, that added information of like what benefit is it offering, what is it actually treating, is enough to get people to start thinking about adding you into their consideration set. So in that case, you still want to ask people to learn more. So again, like I said, it's not about purchasing your products at this stage still. It is still about getting them to know a bit more about your brand, be more convinced that now, okay, this is a worthwhile option. I will now add this to my list of typical brands I would typically be assessing at this stage to decide if I want to purchase it or not. So like I said, your messaging here can be in the form of, detailed product benefits, like the Mucinex example I showed you in the beginning. And in that case, you have that ad serving both stages, right? That ad is about getting awareness, and that ad is about driving consideration. So you can have messaging that has both, right? But if you think about it, both of them are all about getting more information. So in that case, that Mucinex ad, it could just be, I want you to then go and explore, people's typical actions right after they see stuff like that. They're either going to explore reviews, maybe they're going to the website to learn more information. It just depends on what it is that where they're going to look for that additional information to get them to say, okay, this is worth me assessing as an option for me. I think when I ask people, just seeing that ad, would you now consider this as an option when you next time have a cold? People are like, yeah, because I saw that it covers a bunch of symptoms. I know a bit more about what it's doing. It's not just an ad talking about, some incentive that's giving me money back, which doesn't mean anything to me. So again, at this stage, it could also be that your product's landing page is where you have the detailed information that gets your consumers to add you to the consideration set. So this is the Rev Air example. And I finally, after probably 2 years, I finally bought the Rev Air because it's an expensive hair dryer. But my daughter is every Christmas, and I'm going on a tangent, but just to land the point, every Christmas she's allowed to straighten her hair once a year because it's such a nightmare for me to do. So every Christmas I do it for her. And I was like, it's such a nightmare to do with other hand blowers, right? And I was like, okay, this year, Christmas is around the corner. I'm like, I just need to get this thing so I can have my peace in my life, right? Yeah, so I actually finally bought it. But, I was looking at their website and I was saying, this is the information that you're looking at. Like, what does the product do? What is their process? What's the science behind what they're saying they're doing? What have people said who have actually purchased it and used it? Are they good experiences? For me, it's like if someone with 4C hair, use this so that I can tell that actually it has the same effect on someone who has my type of hair. Those are the kind of information people are thinking before they say, okay, I should start assessing this as an option before I purchase. So let's move on to the next phase, the next stage in the process. So this is the final stage, right? The actual purchase, the buy stage. Now, Here, your consumer, they have their short list of brands. They are now going to pick of this short list, which one am I going to buy that's going to solve my problem, right? So they are assessing each of the brands against each other. They're comparing them. So this is where so many variables now start coming in and impact which ones they choose. So it could be its price points. They are looking at reviews again. There's even the perception of like, how convenient is it to get it, right? Sometimes you have different products that have different shipping times. Maybe one is going to get to me sooner. One will take longer. One I have to pay for shipping. One I don't have to pay for shipping. Like there are just so many variables at this stage that help a consumer make that final choice, that final push to get them to go ahead and buy. So your goal at this stage is all about getting picked. You want to sort of seal that purchase. So your goal is, how do I make it as easy as possible for consumers to pick me? And I think you can tell, right? At this stage, it's a very simple call to action. Go ahead and buy. Shop now, buy now, and there's also a potential where at this stage to get that final purchase, you want to give them an incentive, right? Especially if you're a newer brand that people haven't tried. People are much more, again, depending on the cost of the products, there's some risk, inherent risk when people are buying things new for the first time, right? Sometimes there's inherent risk. So how can I minimize that risk as much as possible? A way to do that is by sometimes offering a discount, sometimes highlighting testimonials, highlighting reviews, something that gives consumers confidence that they will get the benefits that they're actually trying to get from this product. Again, your goal is, how do I make it as easy as possible for people to buy the products that I've after I've done all this work of getting them to notice me, getting them to assess me as an option, how do I make sure I seal that purchase? So that's your goal at this stage. And so what I did was put some examples of different things I've looked at that at this stage, how you should be thinking about messaging. So incentives are a great way to get your brand to seal that purchase. It could be cash incentives. The Mucinex one was not a discount. It was essentially saying, if you purchase that product, Mucinex will give you $5 back, right, to do XYZ. If you purchased it, it could be discounts like Caraway. These are, sets of product plans and pots, amazing products, super expensive. So whenever there's a sale, it's like, yes, if you haven't bought this before, like people will go ahead and they don't do them often. So people want discounts. It really gets people to purchase, right? And then of course, Black Friday, and I put this sort of rare example, I'm not even going to bother playing it, but they're offering discounts, right, on their products at this stage because they're trying to sort of get that final purchase. At this stage, people are familiar with their brand, they've been exposed to it to some degree, and brands are thinking about who has seen my ad or not in the past, who has visited my website, who has visited my landing page, and they are now tailoring the messaging they are delivering to them based on the interactions they've already had. So they can tell, there are signals they can use to track. Somebody has interacted with me before, somebody has never seen anything I've provided, and then they tailor the messaging they're providing, because that's how you can follow them through that purchase journey. And so the other thing that you could also add is, and I don't have an example here, but it's like testimonials. Testimonials can be a really great way to get people to go ahead and purchase. Like if someone has had someone similar to you has had a great experience, and this is something you really need, that could be enough to sort of push you over into that purchase and go ahead and seal the deal. So these are just some examples to help you think about messaging that makes sense when your consumer has reached this stage in the purchase journey, right? They are ready to make a purchase. You want to go ahead and seal the deal and get them to buy. So I want to recap. I've talked quite a bit, but I wanted to do, I'm a fan of like summary grids, and as Faith mentioned, I'm a fan of structure. I'm very step by step oriented. It just helps me process things easier. So I wanted to just put on a grid, right? What are the 3 stages that you're looking at? You see them broken down. What is the consumer thinking at each of these stages, right? And then once you understand those mindsets, that informs, okay, what's my brand trying to do, right, at each of these stages? And then how does that now inform the type of messaging that I'm sending to them at this phase? And so this, is a nice sort of summary of everything we've talked about to help you just have a quick sort of reference guide when you're thinking this through. Now, before I stop talking and open it up to questions, I wanted to do a wrap up with 2 quick things. The first one really is, the idea that getting persuasive messages for your consumers really all starts by a good, solid understanding of who they are. And by that, I don't just mean, their age range, their gender, where they live. Those are all demographics, right? Those are facts of who they are. But that doesn't really tell you your consumer's mindset, what they are thinking, the things that matter to them, what their pain points are, the underlying reasons they want problems solved, right? Consumers always want there's a main goal they're trying to reach while they want a solution to a problem, right? So, I gave the Reve example of my daughter's hair. I'm just looking for something that's going to make my life easier. That's my end goal. My daughter loves it, loves her hair straightened. It's a pain for me, but it's important to me that she's happy at that stage. And I'm looking for how I can make myself easier. And it just makes me feel like I'm being a good mother. I'm being a good mom. So ultimately, that's the core reason I'm like trying to get that. I'm trying to show that I'm a good mom by doing something I know she likes, even though it's stressful for me. And I'm trying to make it a bit easier for myself. But to understand the sort of higher order benefits, the real reason they're trying to get a solution to their problem, you must have spent time trying to understand them, trying to know them, talking to them, interviewing people, to really get to those psychographics. And that's one of the huge, biggest gaps I've seen with entrepreneurs. And so because of that, what I had done was created a free resource especially for that, right? It's an audience workbook. It helps you think through the specific questions you should ask consumers to get to that kind of level of detail to really understand what the things that matter to them. And then once you have that good understanding, it's a lot easier to create messages that are truly relevant to them, right? I'll post a link in the chat so you guys can access it. You just have to sign up on the site and it will automatically give you access to download it. I will just give it a heads up. It's quite thorough. It'll take some time to complete, but I think if you spend that time, you really then get to the point where you're not guessing about your consumer, right? You spent the time, you've figured out what matters to them. And so when you are delivering messages, it's so much more relevant because you're focused on the things that matter to them. So I'll post that in the chat. Let me do that before I move on to the next thing I'm going to share, and then I'll open it up to questions. Faith, I know you've seen the audience workbook, so you can testify to the thoroughness of it.
Yes, it's very thorough.
Hold on. Right. Okay, let me put that in the chat and you guys can access it there. All right, so the second thing I want to talk about before I close and open it up to questions was my FMI program, and I promised I would come back to it at the end because I wanted to make sure that I talked about what it was and what it entailed. Because most times when I interact with people and I have a chance to talk, I have people saying, okay, great, how can we work with you? And like I said, this is something I'm doing that I love to do and I do on the side, but I have what I do in my 9 to 5. So the only way to work with you right now is through my signature group coaching program. And it's called the F500 Marketing Igniter program. And it's really intended to empower you to make the right marketing decisions to grow your brand to 6 figures, right? Using a strategic marketing plan that gets your brand visible. The way it works is I'll work with you over 12 weeks. I'm taking you through my 4-part framework that really starts from this idea of diving into your consumers, right? Really understanding them. Then I help you establish the right foundations for your brand's long-term growth. There's quite a lot I see people don't pay attention to, things like your brand's identity, the reason it exists, truly what your unique selling proposition is, things like that. And then, I help you create a strategic marketing plan. I work with you to do that, that will attract and convert your target audience. And then finally, I actually work with you to create 2 of the most crucial assets in any marketing campaign I've seen. Really your marketing plan, rather. Really, it's your awareness video ad. Again, getting noticed, people to pay attention and come and find out more about your brand. And then a nurture email series, which are really, email is so underrated sometimes, but it's extremely important in helping people actually convert, because that's actually a medium where you can provide even more detailed information about your brand that could get you to get added to that consideration set. So the goal is you leave the program equipped with 2 critical assets that helps you execute the plan immediately. I've seen quite a lot of programs that you go through and then you're sort of struggling after you've done it to go ahead and execute what you've done, and that was a gap I really wanted to make sure that wasn't in the place when I did this program. The way it works is it comes with weekly live group strategy calls where we review what you've worked on during the week. There's lifetime access to the marketing transformation toolkits, which will include video lessons with the relevant workbooks, cheat sheets, and templates. You also get one hour one-on-one coaching session for personalized attention, right? To tackle any specific issues that your brand has, and daily support in the WhatsApp group for the program. I'm currently accepting people to the wait list. The next cohort begins in February of 23. And so I'll post 2 links in the chat. One is the landing page for the website, just so you can see more information if it's something that you're interested in. And a link to the waitlist as well if you're interested in applying for that. But yeah, even as you're asking questions on what we've gone through, feel free to ask on this as well. And with that, I will stop talking and open it up to you guys for questions on what we've walked through. Was this helpful? Is there stuff that you're not clear on? Let me know what you guys are thinking.
Wow, thanks a lot, Obehi. I know I have my notes here. I learned a lot. And so, yeah, the floor is open for questions. If you want to put it in the chat section, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, you can. But I'm going to start with mine. And my question is, so if you complete the toolkit for identifying who your customer is, how do you then find those customers? So say I know who the consumer is, I know who I'm looking for. How do I find them?
Right. So it really depends on what your brand does, right? So like it matters what the product is. I think my defaults, I do 2 defaults. One is I look within my personal circle. Is there anybody in my personal circle right now that's the product I have or I'm offering will serve? They are the first people I usually go to ask questions. I have 4 sisters, if people don't know this, and we are all consumers. So there's tons of stuff that I ask them, and also I have entrepreneurs within that group. I mentioned that as well. So for my this program I'm sharing, I've done a ton of conversations with entrepreneurs to just understand what people's issues are. So that's one way. Another good example is, if you don't have people in your, maybe not a large group, or you're in a space that you don't know as many people, Facebook and Reddit are actually 2 really interesting sources of information. In Facebook, there's tons of groups. There's a group for everything. Like literally, Facebook, there's like a group for everything. Whether you're interested in makeup, you're interested in wellness, there's just so many groups, and many of them are free to join, and many of them are open to like you asking for people that you want to talk to people that you have questions, that you want to learn a bit more. Usually you have rules, but that's that's one of the ways you could do that. And then Reddit as well. It's another place where, again, tons of subreddits on different topics, different things, depending on what you're looking for. It's just about like taking the time then to go ahead and find it. And then the last option, and this is more like if you are more, maybe a bit more tech savvy, like you know how to do ads, like you can literally run ads and ask people to sign up for come talk to you for an interview, if you want to do that as well. So just some options, but most of the big companies that I'm talking about, all we do is, you don't want to know how much research we do. Like all we do is research. We're constantly talking to consumers, whether it's like focus groups, surveys, interviews, constantly. It's the only way to really understand what they need, and it's the only way to then create the right products, the right kind of messages, all of these things that you need. Otherwise, you're like, most of the time you're guessing.
That makes sense. Thank you very much. Let's show her some love in the chat section. I'm seeing all the thank you. If you learned something, just let her know. And if you have questions, please send in your questions. You can send it in the chat section.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat or ask. And I just thought of one thing. I think I should also put my
Okay, I think Tiwa is raising her hand.
Hi,
Oh,
Obehi.
sorry. Go ahead, Tiwa. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for the session. Really enlightening. My question is about how best to apply all of these principles to a service rather than a product.
That's a good question. And honestly, it's literally the same thing. The only difference is thinking about it again from the perspective of a consumer. So if you offer a service, people go through the same pathway. They start with, I have no idea what your service offers. Never heard of you. Not, I may have a problem. Maybe I'm looking for a I don't know. I think you were like, I feel like you feel like the research, like photography or something.
What
go ahead.
mine?
Yeah.
My
Also
service, fashion business consultation.
Fashion. Oh, okay. Fashion business consulting.
Business,
Exactly.
yeah,
Right?
not tailoring.
Not
the
tailoring,
act of
yeah, the business itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
yeah.
then, you know, that you all feel like a consulting service, right? So again, it's like starting off with like people who have, well, there's two things. One, and I didn't talk about it in this as well, because I didn't want to overcomplicate it, but usually at the awareness stage, people are in two phases. They either don't know they have a problem yet. Some people are not even aware they have a problem, right? So that's a different stage. They don't yet even know they need some help in the first place. And then there are people that they recognize they have an issue. And usually for most products, that's sort of where I focus. Like most people know that they have a problem. They know that either they should be taking vitamins because they need something, or, you know, they're trying to get a particular shade of lipstick or whatever. In your case, maybe like a service, it's usually people know maybe they're struggling with the, you know, setting up something that they want to do, and they're trying to find help. So sometimes people know that they need help, right? Usually it starts there, but then it begins with, are they aware of your brand as an option? So it's the same thing. They may not be aware of your brand as an option. How do you get them to be aware of your brand as an option? Same point. How do you get them to pay attention to you? Notice what you have to say. You have to start thinking through the specific channels that they're using to like look for that sort of information. That's where your brand should be showing up. And then they will go through the same process. As they're looking for options, they will start assessing, okay, which ones will make sense? What are the criteria that pay attention to me, that make sense for me, before they then decide to buy? It's the same, they go through the same process. It's just a bit of a different mindset shift in terms of service versus products, but it's the same pathway, the same journey essentially that consumers go through, no matter what whether it's a service or a product.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions? Hopefully it was clear and you can see the logic between how you should think about what you're doing with your messaging and what where your consumer is, right? Those are the things you need to sort of be thinking through as you guys are, you know, hopefully building out your brands.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So knowing that most entrepreneurs start out with like limited budgets, you know, compared to like bigger companies that can flood, you know, the space with ads and all of that.
Yep.
What would be the best approach? You know, I know some people say fear sells, quirky video sells more. What would be like, say you have a product or you have a service, what would be the best way to gain awareness? What happened?
I just stopped sharing. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry. So like, because I've been seeing everybody on like a little tiny thing. I wanted to.
Oh, okay.
So stop sharing.
I was like, I
no,
hope this is okay.
not
All right.
working
All
fine.
right. Yeah.
So you're saying
Yeah.
on a smaller budget, what's the best way to get
Yeah.
awareness?
What's the best way to grab attention?
Yeah.
In a sea of noise.
Oh, I see your point. Okay. It's honestly, it's a test and learn thing. There's no one way. There really isn't. There's no one way. There are multiple people know, you know, I've seen a lot of data recently about the state of the world and how so many people are dealing with mental health issues and people are like sad. And so people are like actually looking for like funny content because it gives them joy and makes them happy. So, you know, we already know funny content does a good job, and like humor gets attention. But humor can also, there's different types of humor. Humor can come across as silly. I think somebody said, it's like, if I see, I don't like to see cartoons in stuff about medicine. Turns me off, pay no attention. You have some of that. You know, I don't know if you guys have seen like any of the Geico ads that are just like ridiculous in their silliness, but it's intentional because all they're trying to get you to do is either remember one thing, what is it? 15 minutes saves you 15 minutes or more, 50% or more, whatever it is that their core message is. They've been reiterating that, and they're using humor to like get you to pay attention and just keep repeating the same message on and on, so that whenever you are considering car insurance, Geico may be an option for you because you've thought about it. So humor works. I'm not a fan of humor personally. I think it depends on your brand. The brands I work on, some use humor, some don't. But I think one thing that does a really good job is just if you identify what is a true insight, like the real thing people are trying to accomplish with your product. And that's what I was talking about, this idea of like, what is the higher benefit that they're trying to accomplish? Most people don't want, I read somewhere, someone said, people aren't looking for 4-inch drill bits. They're
Hello?
looking for 4-inch holes. Like what they want are 4-inch holes. They just have 4-inch drill bits are just the ways to get those holes, if you know what I'm talking about. So people are looking for a particular solution, right? But that solution is maybe they're building a tree house for their kid. Maybe they are, establishing some long spent hobby, and this is the way they de-stress and relax. I'm making stuff up, I have no idea. But there's always an underlying reason people want the solutions they're looking for. But you never really understand that until you've spoken to people. Like when you start talking to people, then you start to you're asking the questions, and that's part of why I put together that audience workbook, because like I want you to ask questions that can help get you there. And that gives you, this idea, you can get to that core insight. We call it like a fundamental insights of that consumer, because once you have that, then it becomes so much easier to relate to them, right? Because the second somebody reads it, like, oh my God, that's me. Like, their instant reaction is like, you're talking to me, you're talking to my situation, you're talking to my issue. And those are powerful. They're hard to find because they take a lot of digging, and depends on what your product offers. But if you can find that, if you spend the time to find it, it can be quite powerful, and that can also really help. But in lieu of that, the recommendation is usually test. So I don't have any ads I run. I don't have like 1 or 2 or 3 versions of it. Whether I'm changing the messaging I'm using because I'm trying to see which one is landing the best. I'm changing the visual that I'm using to see which one is most interesting. It's just about testing. You have to, but to start off with your testing from a very good initial place, you need a good understanding, because I've seen people test and it's like you're testing from nowhere. So nothing you're doing is making any difference because you just don't have any understanding to inform the testing that you're doing.
Okay. So my last question, I think this will favor those that already have like established business, and they didn't go through this whole awareness consideration stage. Let's say you have a business already and you didn't do all of this, but now you want to get into that whole, you want consumers to notice your brand. What would be the timeline? Let's say you're launching a marketing plan. What would be the timeline from putting your demo out there for the awareness stage to the consideration stage to the final buy stage?
No, that's a good question. I think so. It's not necessarily that there's a timeline per se, and I say that because people are on different phases.
Okay.
So, for example, if you like the Mucinex ad, if I don't have a cold, I'm not in a heightened state of like I need to get something now. So I'm looking for something, right? So I'm already like hyper when I'm paying attention. That's a different thing. You have people who are just like, I'm just going through my DNA. Like I said, it's like, oh yeah, that's true. I should, Mucinex is maybe a good brand for my cold at some point. And you just talk it in the back of your head. So your consumers themselves, depending on how urgent their need is, there's also, there's a variation to how they're paying attention to that. So that's one. Then the second thing is how often they see your communication. So we talk about frequency in marketing, and it's really frequency is like how often have they seen the message that you have. So you'll see if you're on social media, whatever, you may get the same ad multiple times, right? Because people do not make a decision on first time they see something. Never happens. They need to be, it's also that in the sea of things that they have going on, there's lots that they want to get done. So you want people to see your messaging a couple of times. That could happen over a period of days, could happen over a period of a couple of weeks, depends on the season, the time frame, and their need and your budget, right? That all factors into it. So if a rough timeline, if I was just to give you like a typical time frame, it's like, I spend like the first week, 2 weeks with people seeing like awareness messaging, like that's what I'm running. And that's what I'm using that to do is I'm getting people to notice my brand, start to, do some digging. Maybe they visit the landing page. Maybe they have to see the ad 2 or 3 or 4 times before they go and visit the landing page, depending. But then you start to gather enough people where you can now say, okay, I now have enough people that have at least been exposed to the ad. Because again, unless you have a ton of budget, you can't reach everybody. You reach only a subset of people. Those people that have seen the ad, like now then to get them to consideration, I'm retargeting them with messaging that is now about it's all about, details that get into consideration. So whether it's I'm sharing testimonials to those people that have seen it, I'm sharing maybe more different types of product demos that shows maybe the product from a different angle or something. Again, with a reminder of like, you should go back and visit, or or, have you explored this? Oh, I saw, I saw that you visited my site, that's where email comes in. I can send you a message and like, I saw you were looking at this, is there more information you want? That sort of thing. So that's sort of, that could take like a week, 2, depends on how long what you have looks like. And then, then it's about getting people to that final leg to purchase, right? That could take them a day or, a week or so. And then maybe that's when you could offer them a discount to get that, if they haven't purchased yet, to get them to go ahead and purchase. Or it could be that you're sharing maybe even more powerful testimonials or more powerful demos, right? That could help seal that deal. It's really not fixed, but if I was given a rough time frame, it's like maybe 1 or 2 weeks to give yourself some time to gather enough people to go ahead and retarget, which is sort of the ones you want to pull into that consideration bucket. And then, within that group is then you get people that will convert finally to purchase.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That was awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
All right. If no more questions, I think what is it? Are we at time, Faith? You tell me.
Yes. No more questions, I see. So thank you so much, Obehi. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. You can see the love, everyone, very insightful session. People really love the content. And I told you all that she has a way of, simplifying concepts. So thank you so much for I'm just trying to read this message. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the free worksheets. Please, I encourage all of you to, make good use of that resource, even if you already have a business up and running. It's very thorough. So you never know, what you can glean from it. So, and please follow her on Instagram. You know where to find her. What was the Instagram page again? I think the link.
That's all right. I put it in the chat.
Yes.
Just so people have it.
So follow her on Instagram. She has tons of free content, and we're all about gaining information the easiest way that we can. So thank you once again. I'm just going to do a quick prayer and officially close this session, unless somebody has anything else to say.
I think the only thing I'll end with is, I know sometimes people need to step away, think through things, and stuff comes up. If you guys have questions, feel free to DM me. I'm quite responsive on my Instagram if there's questions you have, and if the FMI program is something that appeals. I usually work with people who have established businesses. I think it's more beneficial if you've already had a business for a couple of years. I think it's more beneficial, and mainly people who have product brands, so you sell physical products. It's catered for that group, just so that no one thinks otherwise. I want to make sure you know what it's about. But yeah, ask me questions, feel free. And this was fun. I'm glad it was helpful.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let us pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Dear Lord, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for the opportunity to gather here. We thank you for an amazing and insightful session with Ms. Obehi. We ask, oh Lord, even as we log off and go to our respective things that we have to do for today, we ask, oh Lord, that you will be with us, that you will cover us with your blood, you will protect us. And we ask, oh Lord, that you continue to empower us with your revelation, knowledge, and wisdom, that the words that we hear today will bear more fruit, that we will have, that we will make more use of it, and it will yield more fruit in Jesus' mighty name.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
So it's officially over. Thank you.
Bye,
Have
guys.
a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.